From time to time, people will contact us and say, there's a book and can you have the author on? And a friend of ours reached out to us 2 weeks ago and said, listen, there's a book. I just read it. You should have this on. And I was like, yeah. Okay. Of course, we want to have them on. What's it about? And he says, oh, you're going to love it. It's a book about a young man, 22 years old, on the spectrum, and it's told through Yelp reviews. And I said, okay, sounds interesting. I can't wait to read it. Tell me a little bit about the author. And anyway, it started me on a journey, and I'm going to welcome you right now. Marcus isn't here, but we're going to talk about Marcus. The name of the book is Free Markus Katz. Howard Chesley, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, is going to be joining us right now. He is the author of this book. He is a TV and film writer. He's also an author of a book that nominated for awards. This is his second book, and just came out the other day. And again, it's called Free Markus Katz. It's available on Amazon. And I said earlier, I just loved it. So I'm excited to welcome Howard to be here with us. Howard, are you there?
Hi, Shannon. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited to be able to talk with you. I want to have you say just a couple of things about the book, because I could go on about it for 2 hours, and I probably will say some things, but give people an idea. Yep, it's about this young man on the spectrum, and it's told in Yelp reviews, but what can we say about it without giving too many spoiler alerts? Just a brief statement about what the book is about.
Well, it is about a young man who is indeed on the spectrum, and he's very happily ensconced in his family's or his mother's Santa Monica house. He lives in a garage apartment, and he leads a very pleasant life. When his mother becomes sick, and I don't think I'm giving away too much here because it's in all of the blurbs. When his mother becomes sick and she dies, he finds himself in a conservatorship situation. The court appoints a private conservator, and they try to relegate him to a group home, and he flees. And it's all told within the context of his reviews on Yelp, because he is a foodie and he loves Yelp and he loves the community of Yelp.
And so that's sort of the backdrop. Super, super clever to tell it in Yelp reviews, Howard. Gotta say, great concept.
Oh, thank you.
That really, for me, was a hook. I was like, well, that's interesting. How is this going to work out? And I think, and the person who told me about the book said, it's the kind of book you sit down and you read like 4 pages and you're in. And it's pretty much hard to put it down. After that, it's the kind of book that you end up reading in 1 or 2 sittings because you just can't let go of it. And that certainly was the case for me. So, I think I got to start with why, Howard. Why is this the book that you decided to write for your second book? Where did this come from? How did this idea come about?
Well, for me, because I've written, this would be my second book, but I've had a career writing screenplays and TV shows. And they usually wind up being a combination of things. And I did not start with autism. I started with conservatorship. In 2017, a New Yorker writer, Rachel Aviv, wrote about an abusive conservatorship in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is now a famous case. And there was a conservator who basically manipulated the system in such a way that she took charge of 2 people who could have taken care of themselves, and then she looted their estate. She put them in a home. Her family was not allowed to see her, and these rapacious conservators have a way of charging you $100 to get aspirin. And then you wind up having to pay legal fees to a lawyer who's not working in your own interest. So there's 100 ways that they drain your estate. They may sell your house. It's a horrible, horrible system. It's been written. There've been articles in the Los Angeles Times and a number of other places talking about it. So I started with that, and actually, I thought maybe that I would apply it to an older couple. But the second thing that came to me was I was with my own grown son, who we take vacations together sometime, and I really enjoy them. And we happened to go to Glacier Park, and on the way, we stopped in Butte, Montana, which is a wonderful town. It's a historic town, a mining town, and it's because it was a boomer bust town. When it went bust in I think the 1920s, all the buildings remained the same because nobody ever bothered to do anything there after that. And they have a big open pit mine called the Berkeley Pit. And we went in and paid $2 or something like that. And we're standing on a platform, and there was a family there. And there were a mother and probably 4 children. And one of the kids was, he's not a kid, he was probably 17 or 18 years old. He was talking to the family, and he had so much to say about the mine and everything else that I was listening to him, and I was thinking, God, this is really interesting. And they had had enough of it, they were used to it, and they kind of tuned him out. And he was kind of off by himself. And I said, well, tell me about this, Yeah. And he went on, and he told me all the details of the history of Butte, and about the mine, and about when it flooded, and about the characters in town. And he had days and dates and everything else. And it was fascinating. I mean, it was like a college professor, a good college professor.
Yeah.
And I was really taken with him. And then we decided to move on. And I said, thank you. And I gave him a $10 bill because I thought that was fair, right? And he said, oh, I can't take this. And I said, no, please. So he goes back, and I can see he's going over to his mom. And his mom, he shows a $10 bill. She comes back to me. She said, no, I can't take this. He can't take this money. Please take it back. And I said, no, I really, really wanted to take it because you have one marvelous son. And I wasn't making any adjustments for who he was. I thought he was just fantastic, And she said, no, really. And I said, no, really, you should be very proud of him. And tears came down her cheeks. And she gave me a hug. And it just all hit me. It hit me. It hits me now even when I talk about it. And so I saved that for several years, but I didn't forget it. And then I actually started writing about conservatorship, and I thought I would do about an old couple. And then I thought about this. And then I thought about one more, and it was all back burner. As a writer, you back burner a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I thought one day, because I am sort of a foodie and I love Yelp, and I go off to all corners of Los Angeles seeking some ethnic restaurant, and in Downey or Santa Clarita or wherever it may be. My wife and I actually go every Saturday. We go off and we start with an interesting lunch in some stand or truck or place or whatever. And from there, we go to the local park or whatever it is. But the anchor of this is finding a good lunch. And I write about them on Yelp from time to time, and I rely on Yelp to lead me to these places. Anyway, somehow or other, it was like a lightning bolt. Someone could tell his story through Yelp. And anyway, I put all this together. I put the autism, the conservatorship, and the Yelp foodie stuff together, and I started writing. And if you've got something good, when it's easy to write.
Yeah.
I have several books that I've started, frankly, that I've written 40, 50 pages of, and I don't know where I'm going, and they kind of die out. And this practically wrote itself. And I was surprised. It was a shorter writing experience than I ever anticipated for a book.
Wow. Fascinating. And I got to address, because they're going to start writing in if I don't address the elephant in the room. Even when I started talking, as I was reading it over the weekend, and I was, calling people and going, oh, you got to read this. It's really good. And people were asking me, and they were like, so tell me a little bit about the author. They were like, is he on the spectrum? Does he have a kid on the spectrum? Does he work with people on the spectrum? What is his connection to the spectrum? And because people are going to ask about that, and people are going to want to know about that. Now, notably, many it's already been read and reviewed by people on the spectrum. Temple Grandin read it, loved it, and people are starting to praise you for writing in a way that seems authentic, but it's a pretty Wild West climate right now, where people are very critical when something is written about them by someone who is not on the spectrum. You are getting praise, though. How do you think this is happening, and what do you want to say about to that to those who might say they don't even want to read it because they are concerned about that element? What do you want to say to them?
Well, first, I want to say that I'm sensitive to this issue, and I considered it from the beginning. Secondly, is that I am a career writer, and most of my experience as a writer is writing TV and screenplays where you're basically writing first person. And as a matter of fact, my first book was also we consider Yelp to be first person because he is writing what he is. You are hearing what he is saying, and the big issue for me in writing my first book was I don't know if I have a voice that I want people to hear. I'm afraid I'll use the wrong adjective, the wrong metaphor, whatever. So better I do it in somebody else's voice. It's like a disguise for myself. I have had, I'm not a famous writer, but I've had a good career at this. And it's largely because I'm good at that I can put myself in other people's heads and kind of speak for them. Not everybody, but I'm fairly broadband about that. So in this case, I should tell you something else, which is that there's a book which people may know called 600 Hours of Edward by a guy named Craig Lancaster, which is also a much praised book with an autist, a hero who's on the spectrum. And I looked at that and I thought, that's pretty good, and it's possible. So I just gave it a shot, and I do know I do have friends, for example, who are clearly on the spectrum. I happen to like people who are, we'll call them, they're undiagnosed, but we all know they're on the spectrum, and we're talking about adults now, and I kind of know them, and as I say, I like them, and I kind of identify with them. I consider myself neurotypical. I have quirks, but and also I have friends with kids who are diagnosed and on the spectrum. Yes. And I just try to think that way. And I'm hesitant to try and defend this process too much because people have strong feelings about it. Yeah. But I did my best, and I thought that I did a pretty good job. But I thought I would put it out in the community, the autistic community, and see what people thought. And I really had no expectations. And it turns out that everybody thought it was pretty good. And I mean, I was prepared for someone to say, don't even try this. You don't. In fact, it was the opposite. That I sent this book cold to Temple Grandin.
Tell us about that. How did that happen?
It was so bizarre. The truth is, I was having a conversation with my sister on the phone saying, how am I going to promote this book? And she said, well, you should give it to Temple Grandin. And I said, I don't know Temple Grandin. How am I ever going to give it to you? You have to know somebody who knows somebody who knows Temple Grandin. And she said, you never know, just try. I said, I don't even know how to reach her. While I am talking to her on the phone, I have my computer in front of me, and I look up Temple Grandin. And she has a website. And on the website, there's a contact form. So after I hung up with my sister, I put a note on the contact form saying I have this book. It's about autism and conservatorship. It's told through Yelp reviews. And I never expect to hear anything back. 2 days later, I get a response back saying, this sounds interesting. Send me a copy. So 4 or 5 days after that, I actually had fallen asleep in front of the television set. at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's embarrassing, but that's what a writer's life is like. And the phone rings, and I answer it kind of groggy, hello. And she says, hello, is this Mr. Chesley? This is Temple Grandin. And we talk now. I hope I'm not saying anything that's, I hope I'm not putting my foot in it here. But my experience when talking to people who are on the spectrum is that I sense a little awkwardness in how they speak, which is fine. I understand it. I don't know whether to come back at them in my slick Hollywood mode, which is, I mean, as you can see, I clutter with my speaking, so I'm not a perfect speaker, but I have a certain enthusiasm when I speak, and I don't know, or whether I should just be like when you're in the South and you're speaking to Southerners, how you get a drawl,
Yes.
So I didn't know how to speak back to her, and I did my best, and I think that she was just calling to see if I was a real person and what I was like and whether she could trust me, and I guess I passed that bar. Because 2 weeks later, I got just a lovely letter with a terrific review, which she said, you can use this in any way that you want. And I love this book. And it is quite a remarkable review. It's on the back of the book, and it's on the website. And I was just knocked out of the park, In addition to that, I've had a lot of help when writing this. I didn't write this just completely out of my head. Yeah. I have friends and neighbors, and in fact, there are some people who are in autism groups who I've asked to review it, and I've gotten a few small suggestions. I'm amazed at how small it is, but everybody seems to like it and think that it's authentic. And some people say, "How the hell did you do it?" And the answer is, "I don't know."
Interesting, but in fact, you had. I think a very interesting thing happened because you have a neighbor that has some similarities in some ways, that there was that shares a love of something with Markus. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Markus, besides loving food, particularly loves airplanes, and he's I just came out of whole cloth, right? I thought, oh well, he should have an obsession. What would his obsession be? Airplanes is a relatively common one. I know a little bit about airplanes. I'd actually once written a script about airplanes, so I thought that would be good. Well, so when you meet him, he works at the Santa Monica Library. He's also a docent at the Santa Monica Museum of Flying, which happens to be just up the street from me. I live near the Santa Monica Airport. And it's a wonderful little museum, and also this is how you combine things. I took the idea of the boy in Butte, Montana, who described the copper mine, and I put it into the museum, and I said, oh well, he's in the museum. This is his first time. And there's a mother there with her child, and they have an airplane in this museum, which is an old FedEx airplane, a Boeing 727, that you can actually go in the cockpit, and they give a flight checklist, and you can go down the checklist, and they have all the controls there. And the mother goes there with her son, and he's really interested. He's young, but she doesn't know what to do. And Markus steps in and helps the son. And the mother is flabbergasted and is very grateful and gives him some money. And then afterwards, the person who is managing the museum comes over to him and says, how do you know so much about airplanes? Well, I'm interested. And would you like to be a docent here? Because you would be great. And so he becomes a docent at the Santa Monica Museum. What was the question? I forgot the question. Oh, well, I know. Now I remember.
Your neighbor.
So anyway, so I wrote this scene. And then I have a neighbor who has an autistic son. He's a lovely person and a very nice boy. And I went over specifically to show her the script and to get her impressions. And as we're talking, she says, I said, he likes airplanes. She says, oh, my son likes airplanes. And I said, well, that's interesting. She says, as a matter of fact, he's a docent at the Santa Monica Museum of Flying. And I said, you're not going to believe this. And if I give you the script now of the book now, you're going to think that I ripped off your son.
Right.
But so I read it to her, and not only described his experience at the museum, but I thought about, well, what would happen? Well, there'd be some nice guy who brings donuts in the morning. Well, in fact, in the Santa Monica Museum, the guy who runs the thing brings donuts every morning to the crew. So anyway, it's I guess it is
Fascinating.
life imitating art, or art imitating life.
Living right next door to you and you didn't even know. We've talked a little bit about how the book came to be. But I just want to make sure that people know this is such a lovely, beautiful story. I think for some of us who are parents, it's a bit of a nail biter, because I'm sure you can imagine, Howard, that it's every parent's, and I'm sure it's like this whether you have neurotypical children or children on the spectrum, but there's the fear of what happens when we're no longer here.
Yeah.
And some people take this challenge head on and they try to put things in place for their kiddos. I got to say that, one of the things that Temple Grandin says about the book is that it's eye-opening, and it certainly is. I think that it is required reading for all of us, because in the book, it seems like to me the mom has done a bang-up job of trying to figure out what happens to Marcus when she's no longer there, and that she took all the best possible steps, and that there even is some money to take care of him. But there were just some things that I don't think that we would think of that go horribly wrong, and that leave poor Marcus in a position where he is forced to break out of the cocoon that he's been in, but really, I think, discovers himself. It's just beautiful. The telling of it is very beautiful. You're a very talented writer. And you find yourself in a position where you are so in love with Marcus, and he becomes so real to you. I don't want to give things away, but later on in the book, there is a scene that was so in my heart, Howard, and where people have an opportunity to stick up for Marcus. And I'm telling you, as a reader, you count yourself as being in the scene. And it's just a very emotional moment. I think it's a call to action for all of us. But it is just a delightful, delightful journey that the book takes you on. So you will thoroughly enjoy it. You will laugh out loud. You will more than likely cry, get the hankies, because there's stuff that happens. But it is, when I think about all the things that we want for a story that tells, as you say, that he is a hero, that tells the story and puts someone from our community firmly in the hero cockpit. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So
I am proud of it. I really
you should be. It's absolutely beautiful. And now it just came out the other day. What day did it come out?
Came out February 1st.
So Jordan has just joined us and says, what book is this? This is Free Markus Katz.
I am a fool, that anybody who has more experience with this than I do will hold up the book, or actually, in fact, will have it on their desk so that everybody can see it. But here it is.
There it is, Free Markus Katz. We also had a picture of it up on the screen earlier. You can get it on Amazon. There it is. You can get it on Amazon, and the majority of the book, I will say asterisk. Thank you. Rachel's ordering the book right now. The entire book is told Yelp reviews, with just a couple of notable exceptions. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's clever beyond belief. It's a fast read. You will find yourself not being able to put it down, because you will want to know what happens to Marcus. I loved that Marcus there was plenty of room for Marcus to be a victim in this, and you just didn't allow that to happen, Howard. And I really, really appreciated that. That Marcus kept showing up for himself in his life, and that we get a really an insider's view of what's happening, even when he's having his most difficult moments. And I just thought it was really thought-provoking and beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.
So I'm encouraging you. Everybody should read this. It's a great gift to give to people too, because I think I think sometimes we don't know what to do when there are people in our lives on the peripheral that are, it's like your sister-in-law who doesn't really get your kid, and you don't really know what to do to help her to get it. Get her this book. And tell her that your kid is maybe different than Marcus, because everybody is different. But I think it's really accessible for people who don't know about autism, that maybe it will open a door for them to understand that we need more people in our community to rally around our kids. So I'm going to say that. But Howard, what is next up for you with this book? It's only been out a couple of days. How are you going to get this to the public?
Well, thank you to begin with, and
Well, we're going to be promoting it.
thank you so much. My last book, which I'm also very proud of, was a Booker Prize nominated book. It was a darker, more serious, more adult book than this one is, and I was very proud of it. And it's a small press. They don't do a lot of marketing, and I sold copies, but not. In my estimation, for a Booker Prize nominated book, it didn't sell that many, and I swore that I was going to try and do better this time. And so I've been reaching out. In this particular case, I think I have a bit of an advantage, which is that it reaches out to the autism community. It reaches out to the conservatorship abuse community, of which there is a substantial number of people. And I should add that the court is not necessarily your friend in dealing with conservatorships.
Oh yeah, no.
And also the people who I haven't even gotten to yet are the Yelp community, which I think there's something like 1 billion Yelpers or something like that. And I haven't even undertaken that. I'm sorry.
They will love this too. I also want to say it's very
so.
empowering to women on the spectrum as well, this book. And I particularly love that aspect of it. And the employment and how important it is for individuals on the spectrum to have employment and the right support, and to listen to them for support. And I do think that it sent a shiver down my spine to realize that even you can do everything right, but if you don't have other things in place, that a conservatorship could go so horribly wrong.
Yeah.
I had no awareness that could happen to our kids. I'd heard about it with the elderly, Howard, but I had not thought about the fact that it could happen with our kids, and it really was eye-opening to me.
Just as a bit of information, the easiest way to get knocked into one of these things, I can tell you this from stories that I have heard, is that you have someone who may or may not need a conservatorship. You are a parent. Let's say you are the parent, you are divorced parents, and one has one idea of how to do it, and another one has another idea of how to do it. You go into court, you ask for a conservatorship, you're each asking for it. The court looks at it and says, I don't want to be involved with warring parties. We're going to mandate that an outside professional conservator will be in charge, and then there ain't nothing you can do. The probate court is not like regular court. It's a nightmare. It's almost impossible to undo this stuff. If you, as a conservatee, try and undo it, they have already appointed a lawyer for you who you have to pay, maybe $400 an hour, who's not necessarily working in your interest. I could go on, but
it's horrible. So the main thing is to make sure that while you're alive, you work it out and get it signed, sealed, and delivered. Who is the conservator then, so that cannot be contested? Is that the thing?
No, well, not necessarily. And I'm not a lawyer, and I really don't want to give that kind of advice.
Yeah.
But one thing which I would suggest is to look to supported decision making.
Yeah.
If you have someone who's relatively, if the person is relatively able and in general able to, bottom line, take care of themselves, which Marcus is with all of his quirks and issues, then a group of people, which you can choose yourself, it can be whomever you like, that will advise you if you have a financial decision or an education decision or whatever, and you can rely on them and you can trust them. But bottom line is that you are responsible for yourself. If that makes sense in terms of who we're talking about, that is a wonderful solution, and I would suggest people look into it. This is kind of in the area. I was surprised that Temple Grandin said opened my eyes, because I thought everybody, who was seriously involved with autism would know about this, but in fact, not everybody does. But I have talked to people who've gotten in nightmare scenarios.
Yeah. I think very few people know, Howard. So anyway, book, we've talked about the more serious aspects of it, but it's really beautiful. You guys, you will thoroughly enjoy it. It's a journey book. You go on the journey with Markus, and you will love Markus.
It's a road trip. It
is a road trip.
Yeah.
And you'll be cheering him, and you will absolutely love it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I get asked to read a lot of books, Howard, as I'm sure you know, and I do my level best, and and here and there I have to skim and whatever. It is the rare book that I go, cancel everything else, I'm going to sit with this book.
Oh.
That's what I did on Saturday. And it really was one day, and I was like, everyone else go away. I'm reading this book. I don't want to hear from you. And it was just lovely.
Music to my ears.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book. Again, the name of the book is Free Markus Katz. That's what the cover looks like. It's delightful, quick read. You will enjoy it. I'm encouraging you, get one on Amazon today, but also I would encourage you to get a couple of them and give them to the people that you just aren't connecting with about the autism thing, to start the conversation. And Howard, is there someplace else besides Amazon?
Yes, it's available in Barnes & Noble, and it is available in Barnes & Noble. Okay. And also, your local bookstore should be able to order it. Some of them, some local stores, I believe Diesel and Book Soup will be carrying it, but you can certainly call them up and ask for it. And if they don't have it in stock, they should be able to order it.
And do you have an author website that you want to send people to?
Yes, I do. It's Howard Mark Chesley. Let's see, there are 2 C's in it. That's the difficult part, but it's howardmarkchesley.com, www.howardmarkchesley.com. It has reviews, it has press releases, it has a little video on it. If you look further, you can find my other book there if you want to buy it. But it's got everything you want to know on it.
Fantastic. We have so much more we could talk about, but we are way out of time. We've actually gone 3 minutes over. But Howard, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about this book, which is just lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for liking my book. Really.
I didn't like it.
It means a lot. It really means a lot.
Well, I loved it a lot. So there we go. All right. You have a wonderful day, and we'll be talking soon. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.